for bringing him into the world. That's right. Because people be like, why did you bring him here if you knew he was going this and he was going that? And like, that's stupid. And then people said stuff like, she kept having babies till she had a child or a sick baby. And that is cruel. People are mean. Like, I'm married and I can have as many babies as I want. For one. For two, he was a wonderful surprise. 3, I'm paying for my child. I'm not living off the government. All my children. I'm paying for all my children. Like, so whoever I bring into the world, as long as you ain't got to pay for it.
The queen of chaos is finally breaking her silence. And what she's revealing now, it's not what anyone expected. For years, people thought they knew Keke Wyatt. They saw the powerhouse vocals, the dramatic headlines, the emotional moments on reality TV. They saw a woman who always seemed to be in the middle of something: love, heartbreak, controversy. But what nobody really understood was the truth behind it all. Because behind every viral clip, every shocking story, and every public breakdown,
Golly, what was I thinking? I always said when I was a little girl that I wanted a lot of children. I used to always say, Mommy, I'm going to have between 8 and 10. Well, I'm at 11, so we'll see what the rest brings of life. I think I'm going to do one more. I keep saying one more, and I done did one more. Let's see, Wyatt, Bella, Kendall, Kiraya, Kizadang. That was 4 kids ago. I love being a mama. If I wasn't a mommy, I don't think I would be who I am today. Started my career with a child, and I'm still in my career with 11 kids. After they told me, well, if you have a baby, you're not going to be able to do what you need to do.
there was a woman carrying more pain than she ever let the world see. And now, after everything she's been through, failed marriages, public humiliation, personal loss, and raising a family bigger than most people can even imagine, Keke is finally speaking up. Not just to defend herself, but to expose what really happened behind closed doors. But here's the twist. The truth is messier, deeper, and far more emotional than anyone was ready for. Because this isn't just a story about drama. This is a story about survival. Keke Wyatt didn't just wake up famous. Her story started in Indianapolis, where music wasn't just a passion, it was part of her DNA. Growing up in a deeply religious household, she was surrounded by gospel from the moment she could walk. Her family lived and breathed music, and it didn't take long before people noticed that Keke had something special.
When you 8 months pregnant and you got a child sick in and out of the hospital, and your husband got the nerve to tell you that he wants a divorce because he says that you're an emotional wreck. He says that from the very beginning, you never trusted me and all that kind of stuff. Like,
by the time she was a child, her voice could already move people to tears. Not just because she could sing, but because she felt every word. There was pain in her tone, even back then, like she understood life on a level most kids didn't. At just 10 years old, she was already recording music. While other kids were figuring out what they liked, Keke was already chasing her purpose. But even though she was raised in gospel, her heart pulled her toward R&B, a space where she could express emotions that didn't always fit inside church walls. And then came the moment that changed everything. At only 15, she teamed up with Avant for My First Love. That song didn't just introduce her, it announced her. Suddenly, everyone knew her name. Her voice stood out in a way that couldn't be ignored. It wasn't just talent, it was raw, emotional power. And just like that, her career took off.
But while the world was celebrating her rise, her personal life was already starting to unravel.
because fame came fast, and with it came pressure, expectations, and relationships that would shape her future in ways she never imagined. At just 18 years old, Keke made a decision that would follow her for years. She got married. To many, it seemed like a fairy tale beginning. Young love, a growing career, and a family starting to form. But behind the scenes, things were far from perfect. What nobody expected was just how toxic things would become. Her relationship quickly turned into something painful, something unstable. There were arguments, emotional strain, and moments that crossed lines no relationship ever should. And eventually, it all exploded into a situation that would make headlines everywhere. During one heated altercation, Keke stabbed her husband. Now, that moment became the story. The media ran with it. The headlines painted her as unstable, dangerous, out of control. But what they didn't show was the fear, the pressure, the environment she was living in. Because according to Keke, it wasn't just violence, it was survival. And that moment changed everything. Her name was no longer just tied to music, it was tied to controversy. Judgment came fast. People who didn't know her story had already made up their minds. But instead of breaking completely, she kept going. She focused on her children. She tried to rebuild. She tried to find peace in a life that felt anything but peaceful. Eventually, the marriage ended, but the damage, that stayed with her. And just when people thought she might finally find stability, life had other plans. Because not long after, Keke found love again. At first, it seemed like a second chance, a fresh start, a way to finally have the kind of relationship she deserved. But here's where things get complicated. Because history has a way of repeating itself, especially when healing hasn't fully happened. Her second marriage brought more children, more responsibilities, and moments that seemed beautiful from the outside. But cracks started to show again. Arguments turned public. Emotions spilled into interviews and social media.
And then came one of the most heartbreaking moments of all. While pregnant, Keke revealed that her husband had asked for a divorce. Not after the baby, not during a calm moment, during her pregnancy. That moment shattered the image of a perfect family. Fans were shocked. People couldn't understand how someone could walk away at such a vulnerable time. And once again, Keke was left to pick up the pieces.
But this time, it hit differently. Because now, she wasn't just dealing with heartbreak. She was raising a growing family, trying to hold everything together while her personal life kept falling apart in front of the world. But here's what makes her story even more intense. She wasn't just dealing with relationships. She was fighting battles at home that most people could never imagine. At one point, her son was diagnosed with leukemia.
And suddenly, nothing else mattered. All the drama, all the headlines, all the gossip became background noise. Because when your child is fighting for their life, everything else fades away. Keke stepped into a new role, not just as a mother, but as a warrior. Hospital visits, emotional breakdowns, fear that never really goes away. But she stayed strong. Not because she wanted to, but because she had to. And through that pain, something shifted in her. She stopped living for the public. She started living for her family. And for a moment, it seemed like she was finally finding her strength in a new way. But life wasn't done testing her yet. Because even as she continued to grow, to evolve, to push forward, her relationships kept pulling her back into chaos. Her most recent marriage was supposed to be different. Fans believed it.
She believed it. After everything she had been through, this felt like the relationship that would finally bring peace. But instead, it brought more questions. After 4 years of marriage, she filed for divorce. And just like that, the cycle continued. But this time, something was different. This time, Keke didn't stay quiet. This time, she started speaking. Not in bits and pieces, not through vague posts or emotional interviews, but directly, honestly. And what she revealed changed everything. She talked about choosing herself, about realizing that love isn't supposed to feel like constant struggle, about understanding that just because you've invested time, energy, and emotions into something doesn't mean you're supposed to stay. And that hit people hard. Because for so long, Keke was seen as someone who kept going back, kept trying, kept holding on. But now, she was letting go. And that's not easy, especially for